See, everyone here braced the storm yesterday and the day before, huh? How many of your gardens got ripped apart? I watched one of my neighbor's homes. The shingles on the roof was, yeah, it's really sad. I was praying that it didn't happen to mine because I just repaired mine a couple of months ago. Yes, absolutely. All right. House. Oh, for it to fall. From the house. Yeah, I was watching the footage on the news, and it was just terrible. This one lady right here in Atlanta, she decided to try to drive through the water. She's like 5 feet high, and then when she got, the car was like going down, and she's up here screaming, "Help, help, 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 help." It happened to be a reporter that was doing the reporting. He basically took off his gear, took out his wallet, and jumped in the water and carried her on his back, like about a good 30 feet away and whatnot. You saw the water. You saw the water. And I just don't understand. Was that, sis? It must not. And it's not like she was young, and she's not like she was old. I just didn't understand. And then, when her husband came, husband was like, what were you thinking? And the reporter had the camera on them. He's like, what were you thinking? It was the most funniest thing. But we're going to get started, because I'm a person that likes to start on time. And for those that miss out, it is what it is. But let's open up in prayer. Father in heaven, once again, by the merit of your Son, Jesus Christ, we thank you this afternoon, dear Lord, for allowing us to be here. We thank you for the information that's about to be shared with all of us, dear Lord. And we thank you, Father God, for protecting us from the storm that took place these past 2 days. Lord, you said in your word that these things will come frequently, and we're watching these things take place, Father God. So that just shows that whatever you say comes to pass and is true. At this moment, dear Lord, we ask that you please be with Brother Stone as he does a presentation on law enforcement and how to protect yourself and what happens if you get a felony charge. So we ask that you please be with him, guide his thoughts and his words. In your name I do pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen twice. Good evening, Mountainside. How are you? Good. Once again, for those of you who I've not seen or met before, my name is Stone Harrington. I own a small corporation called ECOPS. ECOPS is an acronym for the Education Council on Personal Safety and Security. We do all things related to your personal safety as it relates to your physical safety, your legal safety, and how to maneuver through those circumstances should you find yourself in need. We do CPR training. We have a program called the Safe Teens Project, a little of which we're going to talk about this evening. If you weren't here last night, or last week, last month, did anybody and everybody get a cop card? If you are without a cop card, raise your hand. Good. Would you? Okay. So I'm going to start out by asking you, if you can, in your own words, and I get it, we're not attorneys. Let me say this. I'm not here to give legal advice. I'm not an attorney, but I work with attorneys a lot. I have a program where I teach people how to successfully, safely, lawfully, and proficiently interact with firearms. So I'm a firearms instructor. As a result of that, what do we need to know? We need to know the parameters of the laws under which we can legally carry and lawfully use a firearm. Okay, that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. What is the difference between a felony charge and a misdemeanor charge? In your own words, whatever you've heard on YouTube or through conversation, I want to get a feel for what your perceptions of the difference between a misdemeanor charge and a felony charge. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to let you say that again.
A misdemeanor charge is like when somebody accuses you and is mistaken. And a felony charge is when they actually find out the truth that you committed the crime.
Okay. I like it. So where did you get that information from? So you studied it for yourself, or you had a conversation with somebody? How did you come to it? Good. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So, in layman's terms, a misdemeanor is a criminal charge for which you can be sent to jail and or prison for 1 year or less. That make sense? So let's say, I don't know, you ran, so Georgia has a super speeders law. Anybody know what that is? A super speeders law. You know what it is? Want to explain it to us? Come on.
Stand up and speak loudly, son.
Come on up here, bro. Super speeders law.
She's not with us right now. I don't want her here. Just take her out. All right, so I was caught doing super speeding, and super speeder is when you're doing 20 or more above the legal speed limit, posted speed limit of that area. And so the charge is between 500 and 1,000, I think, added to the actual offense. So.
Good. Thank you. Everybody got that? So if the speed limit is 55 and you doing 75, you get not only being stopped by law enforcement, getting a ticket for just being over the speed limit, you get an additional amount of money that you need to pay because you were 20 miles per hour or more than the posted speed limit. Raise your hand if you didn't know that. So, just be mindful that when you're going home, think you're in a hurry. Okay. All right, so misdemeanor. So misdemeanors, when you have a misdemeanor charge, and on the applications, it says, have you ever been charged with or convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony, whichever. Okay. I'm not going to diminish the importance and the severity of misdemeanors because neither one of them is something that you want to find yourself in. But now we're going to talk about felonies. A felony, okay, so a misdemeanor is where you can be arrested, put in jail or prison for
A year or under.
1 year or less. Okay? So, a felony is beyond that. Felony is when you can be charged with and convicted of and sent to jail for a term of 365 days or more. We making any sense? Okay. So, here's what I want to talk to you about. Somebody did some sort of study, the American Bar Association did a bunch of studies to say what kind of constitutional rights, what types of things do you find, what type of circumstances do you find yourself in when you catch a felony? Because we lose some legal rights, we lose some constitutional rights. So the story goes, there are 45,000 circumstances that will change your life when you have caught a felony charge. So, very briefly, raise your hand if you're going, if anybody knows a barber.
A
Barber?
Or a beautician.
Beautician? How about an attorney? How about a life insurance salesman? How about a realtor? All those jobs that I just listed, and there are plenty, plenty more, you no longer qualify to become once you catch a felony charge. Are we ready to roll that? I don't know how this is going to work, Gary.
What you want?
We ready?
You want? Adrian, could you roll? Okay, it's on the screen.
Okay, very briefly.
100 million people with criminal records. That's as many as one.
And I think we need sound.
Most people know the most common consequence of being found guilty of a crime: time behind bars. But after incarceration,
Can you restart it for us?
Restart that, Adrian.
In the U.S., there are anywhere from 70 to 100 million people with criminal records. That's as many as 1 in 3 Americans. Most people know the most common consequence of being found guilty of a crime: time behind bars. But after incarceration, and what you might be less familiar with, comes collateral consequences. Collateral consequences are defined as legal disabilities imposed by law as a result of a criminal conviction. Basically, they limit a person's access to basic liberties. And when we say liberties, we mean everything. For example, upon being released from prison, you need to start earning income. So you start applying for jobs, but you're blocked at every turn. Want to sell real estate? Can't. It's a consequence. What about going back to school to study for the bar exam? You worry the school would rather accept students who don't have a record over you, an ex-felon. What if you just want to be a bingo caller? That's gotta be allowed. Nope. Even that is a collateral consequence. In fact, 90 out of the 100 fastest growing jobs in America have collateral consequences attached to them. So think IT, service tech, and medical professions. All right, scratch that. Let's move on to housing. It's gotta be easier to find a home than a job, right? Wrong. Allow me to introduce you to post-conviction redlining, a practice that happens when private landlords and property management companies have policies that restrict people with felonies from renting their homes and apartments. This essentially forces those with criminal records into areas that are considered undesirable. These areas may face higher rates of poverty and food insecurity, making them the perfect environment for crime to thrive, which in turn causes the risk of reoffending to be even higher as the vicious cycle continues. Only a few states in the U.S. have expanded access to expungement, meaning records can be erased entirely or sealed from employers, housing providers, and educational institutions. Long story short, the current legal system makes re-entry for people with past criminal records nearly impossible. But there are organizations out there trying to change that. To find out how you can help, visit impact.nowthisnews.com.
Yes, ma'am. That's okay. So I'm going to see if I can remain politically correct and say that it is a certain type of privilege. So so you bring up a good point that we should probably discuss. Are laws fair?
No.
Laws are not meant to be fair. Laws are meant to maintain societal order. Period, the end. Now, we would think that just like you have rules and regulations for your home, as our young people get used to, and they come to you and they negotiate, well, Mom, that's not fair. And then you make some sort of concessions that, okay, you can get by this time, but next time, maybe not 37. Next time. So here's what we're finding. Our children, because they sometimes can negotiate with their families, friends, as it relates to house rules. When they leave and they become 18 and then now they have jobs that have policies and procedures, and they say, that's not fair. In my estimation, this is why, the beginnings of why we need to be having these conversations between ourselves and our children, to let them know that once you become 18 or the age of majority, and they're different in some states it's 17, some it's 18, you no longer have the capability to negotiate policies and procedures and or laws. I hear it way too many often. Those of us that watch YouTube, and I probably watch way too much YouTube, and I see it all the time. I know my rights, but you don't. You can't touch me, Mr. Police Officer. Police officers are paid to put their hands on you. Sorry, that's the reality. And what's the other one? I know my rights, don't touch me, and give me another one that you see all the time. That's not fair. I understand that. We expect our laws to be maintained consistently from one person to the next. They're not. The people who oversee our criminal justice systems, from the police all the way up to the upper level of government, they're humans. They have biases for and against certain things, certain people, places. And then we come in front of them expecting to be treated the way he was treated, but you're not treated the same way. So, I'm not casting dispersions upon our criminal justice system, because there are systems around the world that we certainly do not want to be cast into, such that if you steal a loaf of bread, they lop off a finger. Or if you do some other crimes that we have here, rather than being locked up, you lose a hand. So, I don't want to begin to make those comparisons, but it is important that we spend more time learning how our criminal justice system works and how to work within it, so that we can protect ourselves and our children from unnecessary consequences. So, Gary and I are talking about putting together a program for all of your congregation to have access to. It's a portal where you can communicate with me and Gary and each other as it relates to any circumstance that has to do with how to keep yourselves legally and morally safe as you make your way through our society. Would anybody be interested in that portal? I see one person. All y'all need to be raising your hand. So the idea is, between the times that I'm able to come here in a month, you may think of something. You may have a question that we have talked about in the past, or a question for upcoming presentations that you want me to cover. I intend to bring some attorneys in here, some law enforcement officers, some people from probation and parole. While we're talking about probation and parole, what is probation? Anybody know? In your own words, I know, not attorneys. What's the word probation mean, sir?
She had her hands up first.
Okay, so probation to me is a long period of time, but you're not in jail, but you're put to do community service or community work, if that's...
Okay. Yes, actually, for your own words, and that's what this is about. Here's why I'm asking these questions. Not to make you an expert in the law, but to get an idea as to what we need to be speaking about. So I ask you questions. Probation is, for the most part, when you catch a felony, the judge and or jury says, okay, you know what, rather than send you to jail, we're gonna say, go home, don't get in any more trouble of any way, shape, or form for the next, 6 months. That's the duration of your probation. Because if you do get in trouble, you're gonna come back here and you're going to be behind bars for the full amount of what you were allowed
the first time.
to avoid. That's probation, and is usually for misdemeanor cases.
community work to do, so like,
Mhm. Sometimes they have what's called diversion programs, where they will allow you to do some community work for a volunteer organization or a nonprofit, so you can work off your time. They may add some probationary time with it, but as a condition of you being and maintaining your probation status, you're gonna have to, first of all, pay some money to the court every month, and you're gonna have to report into your probation officer so that he or she can make sure that you're doing the proper thing. They do not. So we're going to come back to that because that's important to know. Well, let's talk about it now. When you are on probation or parole and your probation officer says you need to be here such and such a time, if you're late or don't show up, you have violated the terms of your probation, and all bets are off. Go directly to jail, if that's what your probation officer decides he wants you to do. Yes, sir.
Having been on probation before, and I know laws change, no law never stay the same, but during the time when I experienced probation, that was part of the agreement of being on probation, that you had to be employed. That was the part of the probation, that I had to be employed, and until I was employed, I had to go visit with my probation officer once a week to show the places where I've made contact trying to get a job.
Right. So your probation officer, in accordance with the judge, will come up with a program specific to you of some things that he or she, or that the court wants to make sure that you do during the course of your probation. Okay, let's talk about parole. Parole is for those people who have caught a felony, and it's a similar program. But it's usually more constrictive, and the content of what you need to do may differ substantially. But, folks, you do not want to catch a felony in any way, shape, or form. Now, that's most of us, and me included, we are not aware of all the laws that hover over our head on a daily basis. Who knows all the laws? Raise your hand. I don't. Attorneys don't. Know why? Because attorneys practice law. And when the legislature makes a new law today, and your attorney and or you, are you going to get a phone call and say, hey, brother, legislature met last night, just wanted you to know we changed the law about this particular circumstance? Yes, sir.
And to your point, that's why no one knows all of the laws, because the laws are steady changing.
Yes, sir. And if you're not plugged into some way, shape, or form, some organization, some website that is of good report, because there's a lot of bad information out there on YouTube and websites, then you may miss something that you need. That's why Gary and I are putting this program together for Mountainside, to get you a little closer to the large number of things that you need to know on a daily basis to keep you out of harm's way. Questions about parole? Questions about probation? Everybody know the difference? Yes, sir, please.
I would say this, and this is a subjective statement, for black males especially, but these days black male, female, probation is like a noose around your neck, you know, and it places you in such an untenable position or situation that you, a lot of people say, oh, probation, yeah, but you also have to understand that while on probation, you have to be careful how you live or how you don't live, you know, and I'll pause right there.
Thank you. Thank you for that input. I kind of want to talk about now our family emergency legal response plans. Family emergency legal response plans. Is that a familiar term? No.
No.
For many people, for most people, it's not. Most of us do not have a written plan or a plan that we have shared with the rest of our family such that, hey, if I end up in jail this evening, what does the family do? If my son is on his way to college and finds himself arrested, how is that to be handled? Those of us who have children on college campuses, if a circumstance arises where there is an attorney needed, how is that circumstance handled and by whom? Most people, too many black people, do not have that program in place. Who's got a kid or knows somebody who has a kid in college?
Everybody.
Since you're closest, I'll deal with you. What's the first thing you do when you get that phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning? Because you know everything happens after 12 o'clock, right? Out of town, your kid is caught a charge saying he did something illegal, and what's your first call? Okay, so I'm just going to repeat what he says. So find out the charges, okay? Call an attorney. Call out an attorney. What'd you say? Late at night? Oh, you don't have an attorney that's going to answer the phone at night? Most of us don't, but we should. So I get it. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about is unfamiliar. We may have heard circumstances that have happened to other people. So we want to prepare you for possibilities, not probability. Is it probable that these circumstances are going to happen? I don't know. Is it possible? Yes. That's where we are. That's why Gary and I have created this rapport, and that's why I'm here to be able to hopefully sponsor these types of conversations and get people thinking before it happens. I call it the power of before.
All right.
Would you rather I tell you that there is a cliff 7 feet away from you before or after your 8th step?
Yeah. I have something I would like to say.
Please do.
So, are you suggesting that just like families put money aside for their kids to go to college when they reach graduation age from high school, now in America, especially as young black males and females, should we now start putting aside money and allocate it as just in case you go to jail money?
If I could rush any faster to say yes, I would. That is paramount. The consequences of catching a felony, possibly that he or she was really not guilty of, but because we didn't have an attorney who could address the circumstance in a timely fashion, they catch a felony instead a misdemeanor. So to your question, yes, it is paramount that when you have children of any age where they are leaving the house by themselves, all right, let's talk about constitutional rights. Do you know that your children, when they go to school, can be searched by school employees without your knowledge? Say again, not without your parents' knowledge? So that would be a great thing if it were true. I'm going to say it again. When we put our children in public schools and colleges, your constitutional rights to privacy cease to exist. Why? And it didn't begin this way, but now all these folks that are doing active shooter drills and folks taking guns to school, I think it's almost a good idea to be able to go into somebody's locker if I hear that, hey, Billy Joe brought a gun to school. Should we have to wait to call the parents to find out if there's a gun in that locker? So there you go. How many of you in high school, parents and or students, know of your child's code of conduct, code of ethics for participating in that school? Raise your hand if you've read it. Say it again. They read it, but do you have it? No. Have you reviewed it with your child? No. Do you have a plan in place so when it is violated, everyone knows what is going to happen? No. Do you think that might be a good thing to do? Yeah. That's why we're here. Yeah. Public school, private school, they all have a code of conduct. When you signed and have said that my student is now being a member or student of that school, amongst all those papers that you signed that that child and your family would adhere to certain legal parameters. You should know what they are. You should review them with your student.
Can I share something?
Please do.
She had her hands up first.
We got a hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, as a teacher, I had to do code of conduct with my students. And mostly because the school has to protect themselves, because if something happened, we then do the code of conduct, then we can kick them out. But if we do the code of conduct, then we can, we have every right to actually expel them from the school.
Yes. So let me say this. Schools are a business. They have a brand to protect. When you go to a high school, say you're new in town, or you go to a new college, and you ask them, well, let me see, when they promote and they hand you the brochure that says, hey, we want you to come to our school, here's all the wonderful things that go on at our school, do they say anywhere in that literature, hey, it is a 17% chance that your child will be raped on this campus? Have you ever seen that in any school promotions? Does it exist? Okay, I've said it before and I want to say it again. Please, please, please. There's 2 documentaries that I would like for you to watch. The first one is called 13th. It is a documentary about the 13th Amendment, which says that slavery has been abolished in this country unless you become a convicted ward of the state. You should be moaning and groaning and saying, what? The movie, it's a documentary, I think it's still on Netflix. It's called 13th. Please do yourself and me a favor and watch it.
Is it spelled out or is it just a number?
Just the number 13th, 13th. It's by Ava what's her name? DuVernay? Yes. The other one is a CNN documentary called Hunting Grounds. And it's a very long movie, I get it. Let me say this, folks. Good security habits are inconvenient. Learning good security habits are inconvenient. They're boring. The small print of any document is uncomfortable. It's unbearable. It's boring. Big print giveth, small print taketh away. You ever heard that? It's a lot to read. I understand that. But now we're 40 characters on TikTok, and we're scrolling, and we don't have the time to do, but that is where we're losing some of our children because either we didn't know to, or take the time to read the small print. 13th, and the other one is a CNN document called Hunting Ground, which goes through all the crazy things that go on college campuses. I don't care, HBCUs and or your Ivy League schools, they all have their dark areas. Please, I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
Yes, that this comment was in reference to the code of conduct. I happen to be a teacher, and every year we would give that code of conduct, and then we had a test that we would give the children, and I remember the vice principal, the assistant principal would tell us, "Let them pass."
Let them pass.
Let them pass. And you know what that means? Because if they pass, they have no argument again, no excuse at all against the situations may arise. That may arise.
It has to be 100% because otherwise they don't learn it. And we have to do the test over again.
So did you guys hear that? Code of conducts that are being given in some schools. The teachers, the administrators are encouraged that everyone pass, whether they actually passed the test regarding the contents of the code of conduct. Is that a trap? Last time we talked about, you guys heard the term the school to prison pipeline? You ever heard of that? That's a real thing. It is. So our criminal justice system and our juvenile justice system has become a business. I think I shared this with you last month, where a Philadelphia criminal court judge was found to be and convicted of sending kids to to a facility in which he had financial interest. There is probably the largest one that we know is the Corrections Corporation of America, where you can buy stock in their company that houses more brown and black people than any other institution. The school to prison pipeline is a monster. They are, I call them bean counters. There are people who do financial studies and do studies of elementary and junior and senior high school people to say, okay, you know what? Based on this criteria, we can say that at the end of their 12th grade year, by the time they get there, these amount of people will go to prison. They say third grade, the teachers, so. Yes. It's a business. Our criminal justice system is a business. Yes. Yes, sir, bro.
We got the hand.
I'm sorry, man.
I'm still smoldering over this 13th Amendment, the one about slavery is ended.
Yes, ma'am.
Except if one becomes a ward of the state. Did I get it right or
Yes, ma'am. Anybody familiar with it?
So if there's a child taken from a home and they become a ward of the state, they're liable to be in slavery?
Let me tell you how this works.
Okay, yeah, help me out.
You can be, so slavery in terms of me owning a slave is not possible.
Yeah,
But
okay.
our government agencies, when you violate the peace and dignity of the state of Georgia and have committed a crime, it's got to be a felony, and you are incarcerated. Once you are incarcerated, you can be cast into servitude, where you must work a certain amount of days or hours or how long they want you to work for the duration of your stay in prison.
So it's like part of the penal system.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Do you remember back in those old movies? Yes, chain gangs. It's something similar. So, what Gary and I are going to do is we're going to provide you, those who sign up to become a member of the group that Gary and I are going to put together, which is going to be all of you, right? Right? Everybody's going to get their own independent copy of the Constitution of the United States and the amendments. You should know them. We should know them. Folks, I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to do all this. I fell into this because I became a firearms instructor. So I teach people how to safely, lawfully, and proficiently use a firearm. So I get tons and tons of questions about, well, when can I use this thing? When can I use it to defend myself lawfully? And that's when I begin to see where if you carry a gun and create a criminal act, you are in huge, huge trouble. Even if you didn't use the gun. If I went up and slapped him upside his head and just had a gun on me, they could find that you had a gun on you too? Let's up the level. It's called the gun enhancement charges. They call them different things in different states, but the premise is the same thing. Yes, sir. Go ahead, bro.
Yes, I want to say one thing, and when we was talking about the rights of what they have now, I can remember growing up as a kid, my grandfather raised me, and when we were in school, the principal had to call our parents. They didn't go in our lockers or do anything until they contacted our parents. But now it seems for our protection, we are allowing them to take away more and more freedom in lieu of our safety. You see what I'm saying? I'll allow you to search search a locker, but you're gonna have to give away this. So a lot of our things been taken away over the years in lieu of.
Somebody else have a question, comment, concern, observation?
Check on my son.
Yes, ma'am.
And
that was here in Georgia, right?
Yes, and I'm just thinking that in itself just makes me want, I would want to check that locker. I wouldn't want to have waited until the parent came, because look what happened. I know we want to protect our children, but look at the whole picture. That's it's a dilemma.
It is.
It is a dilemma. You want your rights, but at the same time, at the cost of lives, it is a dilemma.
So the cat is out of the bag. There are more guns in this country than there are people, and guns aren't going anywhere. Guns don't rot. They don't become disabled over time. They're making hundreds of thousands of guns as we speak right now. So, what's the answer? What's the answer? I don't have it. Yes, ma'am.
I understand what she's saying, but at the same time, the whole system has been flipped upside down because parents are not able to parent the way they used to. There are laws to protect children, so to speak, in the home. You can't spank and hit your child. If your child calls the police, then you're liable. So this poor woman, instead of her taking care of the situation at home with her child, she went to the educational system to say, help me, do this for me. And that was not the case many years ago. So it's like, I feel sorry for parents and for teachers today. I'm retired, so I'm not in that system, but it's really difficult in both instances. I would want them to check the child's locker. Don't call me. Check the child's locker, because lives are at stake. But at the same time, the parent can only do so much because there are laws to protect her child from her.
Got a question for the group. I'm sorry, go ahead. What's your comment?
Going back to setting money aside for emergencies, is Legal Shield a route to go?
Okay, so yes and no. There are multiple and about to be many options available for those people who want to provide prepaid legal services for members of their entire family. Some are better than others. Some are not worth the paper they're written on. I have taken it upon myself to study many of them, and I'm not going to give you my impression of them now, but what I've done is, okay, so you can go online and say, give me a comparison of all the prepaid legal services that are available, and they'll give you a list, and they'll have comparisons side by side. But all they're doing is telling you what the benefits are. They have a product to sell. What they're not telling you is what are the restrictions, what are the limitations, what are the exclusions, what are the circumstances under which this thing is not going to work for you.
And to your point, you know, some legal shield companies, they're like insurance, so to speak. Like if you have an insurance policy and like through your employer, right, and you have insurance through your employer, but you may have a major procedure that needs to be done, but the insurance company say, well, we don't cover that. So it's the same way with the legal shield. You know, it depends on, with some of them, what type of trouble you get into. They may not be able to represent you.
There are, in my opinion, some programs out there that are more reliable than others, and then we will put those types of opportunities online for you to see and review, and we will maybe dedicate however long you determine that you want to talk about it, how to choose one of those products for you. Because they're specific to your needs, not his needs. Does that make sense? You may have children in the house. He doesn't. So which one is best for him or for you? But you gotta know what questions to ask. Most people don't, because those types of programs, Legal Shield's been around for a while. Now there's all kinds of what's called self-defense liability programs that can suit your needs, that will provide you an attorney that will come to the scene that night, and that's what you want, whether it's in this state or any other state. So that's a whole conversation that we need to have. I think it was you that asked questions about that in prior meetings. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. But we need to have those kinds of conversations, and I want to share with you in our portal that Gary and I are going to set up, where you can make the comparisons yourself, and then we'll have some conversations about how to make a determination for yourself. But as we said before, if you don't have an attorney, particularly if you have a firearm, if you don't have an attorney that's going to answer the phone at 1 o'clock in the morning, then there is a gap in your level of being fully responsible for yourself and your child. Got a question for the group. Should parents be held responsible for the actions of their child when that child picks up a gun, unbeknownst to the parent? Yes, ma'am. What's your take?
If the firearm belongs to the parent and they don't have it behind lock and key, yes.
Okay.
If I think well, it depends on the age of your child. Now, if your child is
Okay,
adult
so go ahead.
and they live in
make
your
a
house.
law. Make a law for us that we should all abide by as it relates to firearms and children. Let me hear it.
I can't do that. I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough question, man. It's tough. It's tough.
It is. In Fairburn, Georgia,
'Cause I ain't going.
it's been 2 Thanksgivings ago. A brother who had custody of his 2 young children came home from church. You know how kids get out of the car and they run in the house before the parents get there? By the time he got out of his car behind his children, he heard the sound of a gunshot where the sibling had killed their sibling before he made it in the house. The child went in. Obviously, they knew where the gun was because they went directly to it underneath the cushion of the sofa and shot their sibling. Should the parent be held responsible for that? So, Georgia, unlike other states, does not have what's called it's called a CAP law, Child Access Protection Law. No such thing in Georgia. They're now beginning to consider it because of what happened in that circumstance that you just talked about, Appalachia. So legislators are now, in my estimation, for all the wrong reasons, because they want to begin to get political clout and
They're reactive rather
yes,
than proactive.
so voting and all that kind of stuff. But Georgia is probably the most liberal state in the union as it relates to the use, possession, and handling of a firearm. I'm a firearms instructor. I am certified. But if you want to wake up this morning and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a firearms business. You can. You don't have to go downtown to file any paperwork. You don't have to have any kind of prior training to say that you can do this. You don't have to show that you're proficient with a firearm or that you can teach.
That's crazy.
Thank you. Okay, hold that thought. To revisit, in order for you to get a weapons carry license in Georgia, it's not called a permit, it's called a weapons carry license, which allows you to carry a tool, a gun, a knife, a baton, one of the nunchucks. You can carry those legally in public with a Georgia weapons carry license. Also a gun. So it's not a gun permit. Okay, now, Governor Kemp, some years ago, maybe this is the 3rd year, said now you don't even have to have a weapons carry license to carry a pistol, handgun, openly for everybody to see, or concealed. But, and here's where people are beginning to get in trouble with that. Oh, I'm a felon, and he changed the law, so I don't need a permit, so I'm good. No, you're not. So when the conversation comes up between you and your colleagues, friends, family, about, well, should I get a weapons carry license in Georgia? Yes. Yes. Those who are walking around here without it and carrying a gun, go get your weapons carry license because it provides you more legal cover than if you did not have it. Were you guys here when we talked about the difference? Very, very, very briefly, brother, hold on a second. If you get caught within 1,000 feet of a public school with a firearm and you do not have a Georgia weapons carry license, they can cart you off to jail. If you do have a weapons carry license, You can drive your kid to school up into the little circular area. Don't get out of the car and go into school. You can pick them up, don't get out, let them come in, get into your car, and drive away if you have a weapons carry license. But if you don't, they can lock you up. So many times people say, oh, I don't need that thing because I ain't got no kids. I'm not driving any. Okay, so let's say you, I don't know, you got a tail light out and they pull you over. And they pull you over, you pull over within 1,000 feet of a school. Is that a problem? Yes. When you begin to hear people have that conversation, well, I don't need it. Yeah, you do. Tell them, get it. Here's the deal. If you qualify for the license or the weapons carry license, then you also qualify not to have it. If you don't qualify, pass the background check. If you don't qualify for the weapons carry license, then you also don't qualify to be able to carry without it. So there's a bunch of federal questions that they're going to ask you. Have you ever been convicted of this or that? Have you ever been discharged dishonorably from the military? There's about 18 things that you have to answer properly. Ever been on drugs? All those things. If you answer those improperly and you do not pass a background check, you do not get a weapons carry license. And then you can't go and say, well, I didn't qualify for it, but I can still carry it because I don't. No, that's not how that works. Yes, ma'am. So it's you can apply, but until you get whatever is on your record expunged, then you're not going to be able to get a weapons carry license. Yes, ma'am? Within 90 days, you can reapply before your weapons carry license expires. Yes. Within 90 days of its expiration date. Is that you? No. So, okay. You have a 60-day grace period from the date that it expires till 30 days forward. You can, but you got to do it by mail. By mail. You have to reapply. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I realize that a gun is not useful if it's under lock and key to defend yourself, because the criminal's not going to say, you're not going to say to the criminal, wait, I got to go to the safe and get my gun. But if you have a gun to defend yourself and you have children, what do you suggest you do? Because a gun is not useful if it's under lock and key, but you also have children that you're trying to defend. So how do you recommend you handle that scenario?
I suggest that you find a good, qualified firearms instructor and have a family firearm safety training class. Anybody know one? So, but here's how I do it. I've had families that come in and we'll take it step at a time, because sometimes the child doesn't want to or can't sit still long enough to get just the classroom part out of the way. Because we've got to have them knowing what's called the Universal Firearm Safety Rules and know what they are in context. If they're not emotionally, intellectually ready for that, then we stop. If they are, then we go from there as far as we can get, and we'll take them to the range, and we'll let them shoot a little pea shooter and or a .22 gun. But here's how I do it. If at any point that I see that this is not going the way that it should and we're about to be unsafe, all bets are off. That's fair, right? And now that doesn't just happen with children. That happens with adults too, so. Good.
I had a gun,
Yes, sir.
stuff that I would let go.
I've heard that. Say it again.
What do you think of the argument that's espoused by a particular legal, political party, where the argument is guns don't kill, but people do?
So, somebody said it over here earlier. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. What do you think? You like that? You don't like that? What? Gun can't fire itself? So, do I need a gun to choke him to death? So, I get it. I get both arguments. The gun is going to lay on that counter until kingdom come, or until somebody interacts with it properly or improperly. So, is it a catch-all statement? No, it's not. If a person is intending to kill you or do harm to you, he or she is going to do it with or without a tool. So, I can't cast aspersions on either argument. Absolutely. If a person who has mental issues, deficiencies, considerations, and they are allowed to have access to it, that needs to be handled. To that point, Georgia does not have what's called a red flag law. Red flag law basically says that if I determine that somebody that I know is not of the mental capability to have a gun, I can go to my county sheriff's department, have them help me approach the judge and say, hey, look, based on this circumstance that I have observed, I know they have a gun in their house. I think that they shouldn't. That judge can, if he or she so decides, after doing whatever investigation they do, they can go into and knock on that door and remove all the guns from that residence. Georgia does not have a red flag law. Again, they're beginning to have more and more conversations about it, but I don't see it happening, not in the state of Georgia. Yes, ma'am.
I won't go into detail, but I had a friend whose spouse was physically abusive, and she went to court, and he had pulled a gun on her, and the police came and took every single one of his guns. So are you saying that Georgia doesn't do that? But I know that they did do that.
So with those particular circumstances, I'm not sure how that unfolded, but in terms of a law on the books, for me as a private citizen to say, hey, you know what, she's got a gun in the house and she has said and done certain things that make me as an individual perceive her to be dangerous to herself and others. I think your circumstance and what I'm describing is a little different. I guess there was some history there.
He was physically abusive.
Yes.
So the police came and took all of his guns.
That's.
And there were many.
Yes. Yes. Yes, sir. When someone breaks into your home, can you shoot them? Yes. So who is a black female candidate for president that said, I'm sorry, if you break in my house, I'm gonna shoot you? Okay, let's talk about when is it lawful that you use deadly force when someone breaks in your house?
Your life is threatened.
Come on up. Come on up. Come on. Sit right there for me. Okay. So, you sitting there with your little glass of wine and you enjoying your evening watching your favorite program show. Law and Order. Okay. And you hear at the front door, crash. And someone steps inside the front door. Can you shoot him? Yes. As far as I know, okay. Okay. I get it, folks. I get it. And many of us would do the same thing, but is that what the law allows? I mean, I get it. Look, people come to my classes and I tell them what the law says and they say, Stone, I'm not doing that. I said, okay, you make your own choice, but you can't say you didn't know. And you make the laws in your house, girl. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm not here to try to convince you to do something different. I'm here to say that if you get locked up and you're behind those bars, I want you to say, hey, you know what? I knew what I was doing and I'd do it again. I don't want you behind those bars saying, I wish somebody told me. That make sense? Hey, do you, but know what the boundaries are. You want to play football? I'm going to show you where the boundaries are, the goalpost. You decide if you want to play. But if you go out of bounds, you're out of bounds. There's a cost. There's a penalty.
So when is it justified to shoot?
When is it justified to shoot?
Okay. The only time, we are defensive firearms owners. Keyword is what?
Defensive.
Defensive. So, if we're defensive firearms users, can we be offensive? Can we be the one that started it? No. So, the only time that we can use deadly force is when we are matching a force that has come our way first. If we go beyond the force that is being brought to us, then we have used excessive force, which is illegal. If she slaps me upside my head, can I pull a gun on her? No. So, there's this thing called disparity of force. If I go beyond what she has, remember, I can only react to what she has done to me. Right? Yes.
Yes. He's coming inside, and he sets foot, and I see the gun, and I'm here drinking my wine. Why can't I shoot?
Okay, good. Okay, so you, good. I like it. So, you see the difference? So, in this circumstance, she says she sees a gun. And he has crashed in the front door with a gun. Is it reasonable to think that he's probably going to use this thing? Okay. Much different than if when I just crashed in the front door and stepped in without a gun. Say what?
No, Laverne, not your turn.
So, yes, please.
No, wait. Run.
Great question. Great question. So, okay. So there are things called disparity of size, disparity of numbers, disparity of force. In the circumstance that you just described, where he's much bigger than you, then you can use some technique, some tool to even the circumstances. Does that make sense? So let's say another example of that is a person who is in a wheelchair. They don't have the ambulatory capability to do what other people can do that are not in a wheelchair, so they may have the opportunity to use a tool or force to level the playing field. Does that make sense?
You better have a doctor.
Y'all are too much.
Question over
Okay.
here. Stand up.
That's okay.
I just want to give a scenario and you can answer the question. I'm upstairs in my bedroom and I hear someone break into my house. Can I go downstairs and confront them with a firearm and shoot them?
Why not?
You're not in danger. You're not in imminent danger? You're not in imminent danger. He broke into my house. My domain. Wait.
Broke into my house to come and rob me, but I'm upstairs in the safety of my bedroom. So I come out with my gun,
With your
go downstairs and
AK-47.
take him out. Is that
So you have left a safe place to go into an unsafe circumstance, even though it's in your own house. It can be said by some judges and juries that you escalated the situation from a non-deadly situation to a deadly situation. Not only have you put yourself in harm's way, but maybe it was some kid who was drunk and they broke in the wrong house, and now you go down there and shoot them, and they say, oh, you came downstairs and shot. You didn't have to do that. So here's the deal. In the state of Georgia, loosely stated, you cannot use deadly force to protect property. Property. I asked this question before. What's the difference between a house and a home? What's the difference between a house and a home? Can you touch a home?
No.
No. A home is like an idea. It's
It's an
abstract, right?
Ideology.
Okay. You make your house comfortable,
That's your home.
so that's your home.
Right. But the house is-
You've heard the term castle doctrine and stand your ground.
Stand your ground.
Old English law started what was called the castle doctrine. A man or a woman has the right to protect his or her castle, right? Here's how people have manipulated it into saying, if you crash in my front door, I can shoot you. No, you can protect human life inside the castle. You can't stand outside the castle with a gun saying, don't come in here. That's not what that means. You can protect life, and it goes a little bit further, without retreating. In every state in the United States, in your home without retreating. In some states, remember that's just inside your house. Georgia is a stand your ground state. So now you're outside your house, right? Anywhere in the state of Georgia, wherever you have the right to be, if someone brings you deadly force or harm, you do not have the legal responsibility to run away. You can stand your ground to protect yourself. Now let me tell you how that could work against you. Let's say this is a door. And tell me your name, bro. Anthony. And Anthony and I have been having beef all throughout our little conversation here. And I see him reach for his gun. And I get the drop on Anthony and shoot him. I don't have the duty in the state of Georgia to run away just because he pulled a gun on me. Are you with me? Okay. But somebody's going to come in this room and take a picture of this door that I'm standing by, and the jury's going to say, wait a minute, isn't that a doorway that you were standing in? Yep. Oh, so you decided to take a human life rather than step out of the way. So, but I say, hey, wait a minute. I didn't have to go anywhere because Georgia's a stand your ground state. and they say, but you could have, take these 20 years. So the law can work in your favor, and the same law can work not in your favor. So, is this a lot? It is. I get it.
And over here.
Yes, sir.
The last 20
Oh,
minutes.
that's for me.
Yes, yes.
They were both in the car? So, are there some gray areas in the law? Always. So now, we find ourselves in a circumstance where we thought that we had done all the right things because we came to these seminars at the church and we talked with Gary and we talked amongst each other and we have a good idea as what we should and shouldn't do with a firearm. And we go out and find ourselves in that circumstance, and now we're behind bars. Who has our fate in their hands? The judge or the jury? So now, those 12 people, and let me say this. That jury, many people think that the jury is, their job is to determine if they would do what you did under the circumstances. That's not what a jury is supposed to do. The jury is supposed to listen to the law as it's presented and explained by the judge and apply the law to that circumstance. Wait a minute. Attorneys go to school for how long to determine how to apply the law? And you give me 6 days? No. So what many juries do, they go back amongst each other and say, look, I'm ready to go home. This is taking too long. I don't like him anyway. So human nature comes into the decision-making process, and it's not about you and what happens to your life and your family and your circumstances and finances. It becomes about what I want to do because I want to go home. Y'all with me? We gonna all vote the same. Yes. Personal bias is for or against. So I say all this to say that the criminal justice system is not some mathematical equation so that you can apply it in this circumstance and that circumstance where 2 and 2 is always going to make 4. Sometimes 2 and 2 is going to make 753.
I was just I'm back on this situation with someone breaking into your home, because it sounds like the law is saying for the person who breaks into your home, they're just coming in there to take some of your property. You
So
started there first, that you're supposed to sit there and assess this individual breaking your door down or breaking your windows open and stepping into your home, and you're supposed to mentally say, okay, you don't want to hurt me bodily unless I see a knife, a gun, or whatever. And you have to respond in kind.
Unfortunately, that's the spirit of the law.
That sucks.
It does. I don't like it either. So here's what's hard for me.
I'm sorry, it does.
I've had attorneys come to I've gone to attorney seminars where they talk about gun situations, and they go around the room and people give their scenarios. And I've heard an attorney say, hey, if that happens to you, you shoot him. And you know what my question is, Mr. and Mrs. Attorney? Can you guarantee me that I won't be prosecuted? What's the answer going to be? No, you can't. There's a sheriff. down somewhere in Florida. They've been having problems with some Billy Bob breaking through houses, jumping in windows, stealing folks' stuff, and they couldn't catch him. And he gets on his little press conference and says, hey, and he held up a picture of him. If you see Johnny Joe breaking in your house, do us a favor, shoot him. Same question. Sheriff, when I do shoot him, can you guarantee me that I'm not going to be prosecuted? Is the sheriff the prosecutor? Is the sheriff the one that brings charges? See how screwed up our legal system can be? A little bit of backstory. I live in College Park. I immediately, the next day, went down and had a conversation with my chief of police. Chief. And I had a little video on my phone. And she said, there's a difference between what a chief of police can say and a sheriff can say, because one is appointed by the city, another is elected. She said, I could not be caught. The city council would fire me today if I said what he said. I don't like it, but that's how we live. Yes, sir.
Back on. We have listened to, in this session, about the perspective of a lot of us when it comes to our responses, particularly regarding gun use. I think a lot of those perspectives are framed by what we see from Hollywood, in movies, how when they make movies, they're not making them necessarily within the confines of what law allows. You will hear people say, if someone is outside my door and I pull my shotgun out, if they hear that click, click, a lot of things, people hear those things, right, and they walk away thinking them to be okay if they find themselves in a situation. And I think these sessions are excellent because now they're giving us an education. What we heard did not come from the virtues of good education regarding gun use and other weaponry.
So these little seminars and talks are meant to be educational, but this doesn't provide you any training. The only way that you get training is when you are given the opportunity to practice what you've learned. Does that make sense? So when we talk about, the little cop card that I showed you and that you have in your wallet, please share that with other people. Those 10 things, who's got it close by? Read number 1, please. Read number 1 out loud, please.
Stay cool and calm. When police feel threatened, they're more likely to react aggressively.
Thank you, sir. Unless you have the opportunity to practice what to say, those are just words on a piece of paper, right? So scenario training where we, and Gary and I are gonna put this together, we bring in you guys and we sit you in a car. And I'm gonna play policeman, and I'm gonna pull you over, and I'm gonna say, license and registration, and I'm watching you reach for your license and registration, and I said, don't move, don't reach! Who got killed like that? Castile. He was a licensed gun owner reaching for his credentials, and that police officer felt threatened enough to end Castile's life. So all of these things that are on those cards, until we put them in context, yes, I want you to read them, I want you to know what they are, but we're gonna give you the opportunity to practice in as close of a scenario as we can put you in here in this church. Anybody learn anything new today? Good. It gives you something to think about, and that's all I want you to do. is to be able to think about these things, get some, and reach out for information that maybe I didn't cover. Yes, sir.
You said something earlier that triggered my memory of this was a interview I watched with a judge, and it was some time ago. What she said was a lady. She said certain convictions take into consideration the public interest in the case.
Yes.
The public interest. And it took me by surprise because she gave a scenario of two exact circumstances. But in one case, she said the public does not have any particular interest in putting this person in jail or prison. In the other case, yes, they did. Same exact thing. So it just left me to think that, you know, many of the circumstances that we see with people going to jail and all are human calculations. It's not
a mathematical equation.
That is correct.
Right.
It's a human calculation.
Based on what?
Yeah.
Based on feelings. Based on biases for or against. Maybe based on, hey, that prosecutor has got an election coming up, and I need my numbers to say that I have more convictions than my opponent.
So my question is, you know how do you have the orange? I think it's either orange or yellow. Orange or yellowish signs that have the speed limit numbers.
Yes.
And you have the white ones.
Mhm.
Which one is mandatory and which one's not mandatory? Or are they both mandatory?
Say again, are they both what?
The orange and orangish yellowish sign and
Uh-huh.
the white sign have speed limits on them. So I was wondering which one of them are mandatory because somebody had told me they were one is mandatory and one is optional because it's the highway.
Good question.
Because it's
Good.
the highway. Because I
Okay.
see them mostly on the highway.
So, there are, and I don't know all of the codes, but to your point, signs are different colors.
Mm-hmm.
All yellow signs are cautionary signs.
Gotcha.
All stop signs are what color?
Red.
There's some white ones. There's some ones on the state that are blue. So they mean different things, but all of them are mandatory.
Okay.
So when one says yield or slow down or curve ahead, if you go around that curve too fast, even though it's not a speed limit on it, and the cop sees you, he say, hey, you're going too fast for that corner. It's still the same.
It was cooked.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So how do they know whether you're speeding? How do they see that?
She asked a very, very, very good question. So many times a police officer has some sort of electronic tool that he clocks your speed with a radar gun or a laser, and sometimes they don't need it. If they visually can determine, so-called determine, that you are going excessive for the conditions, that's enough. And it will hold up in court. So sometimes, so in answer to your question, sometimes they can just guess. So I don't like the guessing part, right?
Is that going to hold up in court?
Many times it does. So totality of circumstances, they're gonna look at your record, see what's on your record. So all that laughter is called consciousness of guilt, okay? Yeah, bro.
Yes, comment. First of all, thank you and Gary for, I think this is a wonderful program and something we need to do all the time, but it can't stop like right here, because unless we're going home and then somebody, it's not gonna be like this coming through you. it's going to be a crash. And you have to be able to think on your feet very, very quickly without trying to say, oh, where's my car? And I got to get it. It has to be something commonplace, just automatically.
And we want to give you the opportunity to practice what we are learning here. Yes, ma'am.
There was a, not to defer from what you're talking about, but there was a case a couple of years ago where the lady was inside her house with her 2 kids, and the guy was coming in loud, crashing, using his shoulder to come in, and she shot him and she killed him. So my question is, nothing came of that case. They deemed that as self-defense, and no, she wasn't charged or anything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what is the difference in that? Because he didn't.
Great
have a gun.
question.
He was just coming in there.
Great question. So, what happens in that circumstance that happened to that person with that judge, that same judge can have a similar circumstance the next day and send that person to jail. So, all of the things that a judge and or jury considers, we don't know. The jury received what's called jury instructions, and it's just where the judge says, okay, if you think he did this, then you can charge him or convict him of this. So we want you to apply the law, take your feelings out of it. Can you really take your feelings out of something? No. No, we're human. We're feeling people first. And we don't really know how to apply the law in those murder cases, and they're talking about murder 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this. So the human element can never be taken out of the legal process from the prosecution's part and the defense's part. I'm going to leave you with one thing, and I'm not advising you to do this in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to tell you what I do. You know that little breathalyzer test that they say, hey, do this and do this here? I don't do it. And here's why. So, first of all, state of Georgia, you're going to lose your license for a period of time, 6 months to a year, automatic when you refuse it. But here's what I have found out, and that I choose to believe. By the time they say, hey, step out of the car, let's do this field sobriety test, they already know they're taking you to jail. That's me. I'm not telling you what to do, but I would rather roll the dice, get an attorney who might be able to help me get my license back or get it thrown out, than to give him or her, the police officer, more ammunition to say, see, Judge, I got it on camera. He couldn't even walk straight. See, he put 1 foot in the other, and this foot, he did 3 inches instead of 4. So Gary and I are going to have a circumstance. We're going to parade you up here, and I'm going to give you the field sobriety test, and you're going to fail it. You're going to fail it. You know why I say, you know why? Because I say you failed it.
And the judge takes the cop's word over yours all the time.
Yes, sir. So let me say this again. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I do. So don't say Stone said. Okay.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you because I still can't, on a good day, I still can't say the alphabet backwards. I don't know how people expect you. I mean, like, you gotta sing it, right? You know. So I still don't see how that's fair, but you know that's how the.
Many times judges, and if it gets to a point where now they want to, get a subpoena to draw your blood and all that kind of stuff, many judges, not all, really do have a hard time with, that's a bit much, police officer. I've seen it more cases than not, in the few cases that I've seen, where the judge will throw it out. Hey, officer, that's not enough information for me to convict this person. Case dismissed. I would rather roll the dice, because I'm going to jail anyway. I'm telling you what who does? What I do. You make your own determination. Give it some more thought. Talk to some people, whatever you want to do. But you need to know what to expect when they begin talking to you about doing the field sobriety test.
An excellent movie to observe jury behavior. 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Excellent.
With Jack Lemmon.
What is it?
Yeah. Well, there's several. There's several
12
versions.
Angry Men.
To observe
Whole movie.
jury behavior.
Yeah.
To
As a
come
matter
to,
of-
to
as-
come to a decision, that is, you know.
Amen. Guys had fun? Very interesting? Knowledgeable? Are you going to use it? Well, I hope so. You know, like Elder Lindsay, I was going to bring that up. 12 Angry Men. It's a black and white movie. You got to watch this. Throughout the whole tape of the movie, people's like, I want to go home. I got a baseball game. I got this. I got that. Let's convict him. He's guilty. Okay, and Jack Lemmon, was it? No, Jane Fonda was the one that kept on saying no. And then at one time it was 11 juries convict, 1 jury not. And at the end of the movie, they all decided not to because the evidence was there, but they just wanted to go home and get it over with. And this is how juries think. They just want to get it over with so they go home. No one wants to be on jury duty. I mean, I want to go to jury duty, but they won't call me. You know, they won't call me. You know, they call my wife all the time, but they never call me. And I'm like, what? That's so unfair, because I want me a juicy case to be on.
You're the wrong
But again, they don't call me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny, but the fact of the matter is, most people don't like jury duty because it's taking them out of their time doing their work. They have to do this, and then for a few dollars, and they're not happy about a few dollars when they're making $100 a day at wherever they work and whatnot, right? So with that being said and done, they just want to get it over with. They don't care if you're guilty or not. They just want to go home. And this is sad because that's not the way the jury system should work. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, I would want someone to, I would want to look at the case so I can make sure that this person is either guilty or innocent. But nowadays, people don't care about that. You know, the love of men is growing cold. They don't care. Go ahead.
Yes. One final question for me. I'm still trying to protect my home. And so what what's the criteria say for firing a warning shot if someone breaks into your home?
Good question. Warning shots are illegal.
Whoa.
Yes.
Warning shots are illegal.
Yes.
There's no ifs, ands, buts about it.
In your house.
Illegal.
And what if you shoot in the ground?
Illegal. So here's the deal. It is illegal to discharge a firearm within the city limits. Unless, say again? It probably is a misdemeanor, yes. Depending on your record.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
So, warning shots are illegal. I don't care if you shoot them up in the air, and there's tons of stuff on YouTube. Y'all go home and look on YouTube and look up warnings, firing a warning shot. You're going to jail. So, the spirit of it is if you have time to first of all, you have to if you shoot a firearm, you have to have what's called target acquisition. If you have not acquired a target that you mean to hit, you should not be firing a firearm. Look, I don't like it either. But just know what the boundaries are. So, to the whole gun thing, there is self-defense, use of force, up to and including deadly force. Force is I can use my words to put you in fear of bodily injury. I can say, hey, if you keep doing what you're doing, I'm going to come over there and slap you. Okay, that's known to cause injury. If I say, I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna stab you with a knife, now that's what's called aggravated assault, because I've threatened your life with my words. I haven't touched you yet. So now I come over and I hit you with my hand. That's not usually known to cause death, right? That's what's called simple assault. Now I pick up something. I don't care if it's a pencil, a bottle. It's called a force multiplier. I know I can't hit you hard enough with my hand to do what I need to do, so now I'm gonna pick up something. That's called aggravated battery. And these are loose terms, but that's the spirit of what's called simple assault, aggravated assault, simple battery, and aggravated battery. Okay, so now those things that are known not to cause severe bodily injury or death, and then those things that are known to cause severe bodily injury or death: knives, batons, guns. If I point I'm gonna point a finger gun at you. I hope it doesn't go off. If I point a gun at you in the state of Georgia, I have already used deadly force, because the judge is going to say, could that have caused severe bodily injury or death? Yes, yes. So let's play that out. She said, well, if you slap somebody and they fall on the floor and crack their head open and they died. So it has to do more with intent. If you pick up something that is known to cause severe injury, bodily injury or death, like a gun, it could be pretty well said that you intended to have a certain outcome. So, good question. Here's what it is that's hard for me to do, and I hate it when other people do it. I don't care if they're an attorney, prosecutor, firearms instructor. Do not let anybody tell you, hey, if this happens, you shoot them. Why? Because the circumstance that you're going to find yourself in the future is not going to be exactly as we talked about it in here. I hate it when attorneys and sheriffs say, shoot them. So here's what's hard about my job, and I'm going to close out as a firearms instructor. Yes, sir.
Someone breaks into your home. Can't shoot at them. But I give a verbal warning. My verbal warning is, I feel threatened by you breaking into my house. If you take one step forward toward me, I'm going to see that as aggression toward you.
Okay. I get it. Yes. So his point was, can you use verbal threats against an intruder or someone who's meaning you physical harm? Yes. That's lawful. That's lawful. So the whole spirit of this gun thing, we are defensive firearms owners. We can only use a firearm or deadly force when we have first been presented with something that looks like deadly force. That's the only time we can use deadly force. Now, I can push you, pull you, kick you, do anything other than pick up something that is meant to kill.
So does that mean you cannot use a knife, a taser,
So here's
machete?
You from Jamaica, aren't you? Talk about machete stuff. So here's the takeaway.
All right, guys.
Here's the takeaway. If you use a tool that is known to cause severe bodily injury and or death, that is called using deadly force. I'm going to say it again. If you have a tool that is known to likely cause physical injury, severe physical injury or death, and in the state of Georgia, rape. those people who try to rape people, that also comes under the deadly force thing. So words matter. So we don't shoot to kill, we shoot to stop the threat. We don't want you up on the stand saying, I told me, and I knew I was gonna kill him. I meant to kill him. Yeah, he came in my house. No. You don't. Words matter, and this thing, I like this little term because I just learned it. It's called mens rea. It's called state of mind. So your state of mind is all the things that led up to this point in your life where you have now used deadly force or in front of a judge or a jury. Your social media, your reputation, the signs you have on your front door, the bumper sticker you have, the little sign on the mirror that says intruders will be shot and survivors will be shot again. I had that on the fence in my house, and my attorney told me to take it down. Yes, sir.
So let's say, right, I am a baseball coach, and I play baseball on the weekend, and I just so happen to have someone breaking in my home, and I used a bat, but that's a part of my job. It's not a weapon. It's still.
Here's another takeaway. Whatever you do to dissuade a person from continuing to attack you, you must be able to articulate to a judge and or jury that when I did this, I thought I was going to be killed. I thought they were going to kill me. Those are the words you need to be saying.
Yes, because cops use it on a regular basis to get off.
Yeah. Look, don't say I feared for my life. That's played. Don't say that one. I thought I was going to die.
My life was in danger.
So, again, when we have future sessions of this, we're going to give you the opportunity. We're going to put you in some scenarios up here, and we're going to play out some scenarios, and we're going to do commentary on how this thing should work best for us.
All right, guys. Cool. All right?
I enjoyed y'all.
I hope you guys learned something.
Very much so.
And Corey, you're not no baseball player, please. Give it up, please. A bad boy, yeah, but no baseball. Get out of here. Yeah, you got to be able to play if a coach. No, but all seriously, guys, I hope you guys learned something today. And I hope you guys, because when I first found out, when me and Stone first met up, and I found out that just having a sign, you have some lawyers that will just taint your reputation just because of that sign. You know, this is how mad this man was that he wanted to shoot someone. You know, I used to have a neighbor when I lived in Covington that had a sign that says, this house is protected by 357 Magnum 3 days a week. You find out what day it is. I loved it too, but he got in trouble for that in Covington, Georgia, because someone accused him, and, you know, I don't know whatever happened because I never saw him again, but I could only imagine. So it's serious. You know, having a firearm is serious. As we have said, the law changes all the time, and you're not privy to the law as it changes. You find out that it changed when you sadly to say, if you get into trouble and you are facing a jury and a judge. So, you know, all of this is just educational, because no one knows what scenario they may be caught up in. But again, the fact that you have some sort of tools to help you from being in trouble, facing a slap on the wrist, or years in prison, that's why we do it. And sadly to say, a Caucasian person could do the same crime as a brother, they get a slap on the wrist, and you're going to jail. So yeah, the law is not fair. When was the law ever fair, especially to us?
The law itself is fair. The application of the law
Is
is the
unfair.
problem.
So again, thanks again for coming. We're going to do a next program at the end of next month of October on the fourth Sabbath. I don't think I got to continue going up on the pulpit every 2 weeks before to tell you guys. But again, so you guys are here because you want to know.
I got a favor to ask. Do I know y'all well enough to ask for a favor? When you come next month, bring somebody. The last Saturday.
Fourth Saturday in October.
I don't know what you want to call it. I'll let you give it a name.
Understanding the Lord. There you go. Understanding the Lord to protect us. All right, let's close out in prayer.
All right, let's go in and pray. Dear Father, I'd like to thank you for another opportunity for us to know what to do to prevent us from getting in unnecessary trouble later. And I pray that you be with us as we go back out in the world, and that we will do our best to stay out of trouble so we won't really get involved in the law as much as possible. And I pray that you just be with this country right now, with all the turmoil that's going on, that we will keep our faith in you no matter what. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Mountainside.
And one last thing, you know, when Oprah interviewed Kamala and said she would shoot him, no, she won't. She has Secret Service protection, so guess what? She ain't got to do no shooting. Because she won't go to jail, but you will.